Welcome to the Easter edition of the PFF Forecast. It is April 4th, and this is going to be a great episode in large part because we finally are going to dive all the way in to win totals. We're going to go over the AFC, all of the win totals for the AFC, and we're going to talk a little bit of draft, of course. We're going to talk about this Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase / Kyle Pitts debate. It's raging everywhere. Everyone has a very, very strong opinion. We're going to dive into it on this episode. Let's rock. Before we get started, I got to remind you about some big things for the draft that are coming up. Obviously, to prepare for the draft, go to pff.com, get a PFF Edge subscription that gives you the PFF NFL Draft Guide, the best draft guide, period. It is full of PFF data, write-ups from the analysts that have watched every single play twice. That's Mike Renner. It is fantastic. So go check that out. And also, on April 29th, that's the day of the draft, the PFF NFL Draft Show will be live on pff.com. It will be starting at 7 p.m. Set your calendar. We're going to have a ton of great guests, potentially a guy like maybe, say, Richard Sherman. Maybe we'll convince Al Michaels to show up. You never know who might drop by. Of course, Chris and the whole gang will be there as well. So set your calendars. Make a point to stop by and check out the PFF NFL Draft Show on April 29th. I will also mention, if you are into gambling, and hopefully you are because you're listening to this podcast, the Elite subscription gives you access to the player props tool, all of the betting dashboards, and the DFS optimizer for next season. And if you use promo code ACTION when you get one of those right now, you will get Action Pro subscription for free for 365 days. That's usually $100 and you get it for free for an entire year. So go make that happen. It's a great deal for anyone that loves to bet on sports. Okay, now we can get into it. I have to start just by calling out anyone listening. This is the one to go check out YouTube because my man, Eric, is rocking pink on pink today. Christ is risen, brother. Holy Jesus.
Yeah.
Can you tell us? I didn't know. I would have guessed. Now, in honor of that, I am wearing the most pink shirt I have. I didn't know you owned a pink shirt.
I don't. Well, I didn't until 2 days ago. We were taking a family vacation, not a vacation. My family didn't have school. And so we decided, we spent a few days in Minnesota with my parents, and then my brother-in-law has a farm in the middle of Wisconsin, about 3 miles away from my in-laws. And we've been staying here. And I just packed, I honestly pack things like work from home clothes. So like sweat shorts and a t-shirt. Sweat shorts, t-shirts. I think I was on air once and I wore a Henley thing, and my wife's like, "Oh, we're going to church Sunday." And I'm like,
I'm sorry.
So, and not only that, she just bought me an outfit, straight up, just went somewhere. She was buying groceries for her mom or something and bought me an outfit. And I open it up and she goes, "Oh, I thought it was light red." I'm like, "Light red is pink, honey. This is what pink is." And the funniest thing about it, so I'm rolling in the kids, I'm rolling into church. We're late, by the way, because we're late to everything in this family. We're 10 minutes late to church. My in-laws we're the only family with a mask on. There's a row. The only row that's open is the one right next to my extended family, and it's second row. So not only are we late, not only are we're not members of this church, but we have to walk all the way up into the front, take that walk of shame. And I'm rocking
just looking like
pink
the Easter
shirt
bunny
over another pink shirt. Yeah, over another pink shirt. And all this time, Steph's dad is very much like a not pink shirt guy, dropping hints that he doesn't necessarily think it's the most manly thing in the world to X, Y, and Z. And so I sort of like played it up a little bit just because like when I just says because I'm a troll kind of thing. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience.
Well, I gotta say, it doesn't look as comedic as I thought it would. It looks nice. You look good. I am glad that you rocked it all day. I feel like you would have been the type of guy potentially to change very quickly, but no, you rolled with it, and I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, I can't say I didn't take a nap in this today,
okay,
but I did. I kept it on.
Speaking of naps, I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on Friday in my right arm because I write with my left hand. I wasn't sure though.
You are a Ken Griffey like in that you are left-handed. Well, you're the opposite of Ken Griffey.
I write left-handed. I play sports right-handed. So I was kind of confused actually, like which arm to get it in. A little sore in the shoulder. I'll let you know. I did not miss a single workout. But on Saturday, I woke up and was like remarkably tired. And being me, like the sad, miserable soul that I am, my only goals were to not miss a workout and, ironically, to feel some of the like immuno response kick in, because I would have felt really bad about my immune system if it hadn't kicked in. Yeah. So I forced myself to go work out. I'm halfway through this workout and I am dying. Like I can barely walk. I finished this workout. I took like a 6-hour nap yesterday. I was down.
I mean, those are the best though. Naps.
It was
naps
good.
Naps without like a timer are the best.
And
I'm imagining you didn't set your alarm for 6 hours, right? You were just like, I'm going to sleep to failure here.
I'm not a nap person though. I like in college, I feel like everyone becomes a nap person because like you're just on permanent vacation to some extent. And then you like grow out of it. I was like never a nap person. I don't take naps that often. So I would say though, the reason I'm calling that out is anyone listening. I highly recommend that you go get the vaccine, get yourself vaccinated. Johnson & Johnson's great. One shot.
One opportunity. I mean, it really is.
I was a little tired for one day. But now I have superpowers. Like everyone thinks like maybe your right arm's going to fall off. Actually, it's stronger now. So
yeah, it's important. And, especially, just to make.
Have you signed up yet?
I have. I'm going to get one next week.
Congratulations. It was packed. There were so many people.
We have a possible, it's not even possible. It's on. We're going like, we got to be vaccinated by next month. So.
Let's talk Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase / Kyle Pitts. So I want to set this up by saying there is a cartoon / meme going around Twitter. If you haven't seen it, it shows two situations. One is Joe Burrow dropping back and Penei Sewell blocking right in front of him. These are stick figures. Penei Sewell holding up his block and Joe Burrow throwing a pass to a receiver named Anybody. Okay. And the pass is complete. Below that is the same basic play, except that instead of Penei Sewell, it is Anybody. That Anybody is getting wrecked. And Jamar Chase is standing theoretically wide open, way downfield. But Joe Burrow can't throw the ball to him because he is getting assassinated by a defensive lineman. And this is meant to say, how dare you think about drafting Jamar Chase when really what Joe Burrow needs is someone to hold the line so he can throw to anybody that is playing wide receiver and complete the pass. So I want to kick it to you. You saw that. You see people getting riled up about picking an offensive lineman over a wide receiver. What are your thoughts?
I honestly think it's the current consensus about football. Let me ask you a question. I know you look at the markets. Mm-hmm. Where would you put the over under a number of wide receivers taken in round one? I
would put it.
So you haven't seen it yet. So you're guessing.
I've not seen that one yet.
Yep.
I would put it at 5.5.
I mean, you're closer than I was. So myself and Ben Brown were doing a market implied mock. The first time that I did it was before these markets came out. And I had 7 wide receivers in the first round.
Wow.
You have Bateman, the three top guys, Bateman, and then I had Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, and Terrace Marshall. Mm-hmm. The betting markets currently have the line at 4.5. Now it is a little bit to the over.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's like minus 170 actually, but that's gone down. It was minus 200 earlier. But like, just say there's 5 offensive linemen going in round 1, according to the markets. The offensive line number is 6.5 minus 150 to the over. So there are people that think that almost a fourth of the draft picks that are going to be taken in round 1 at the end of the month are going to be offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And I think so our friend Robert Mays was the one that talked about this. And, he is a very big fan of offensive line play. He thinks it's important. And it obviously is. Every part of football is important to a certain extent. But I think that is the prevailing opinion around the league. And I think it lacks faith in the imagination of play callers. It lacks faith in the ability. Like, I'm of the belief that you can make a lot of linemen average and you can get by with a lot of average linemen. And so I disagree with this idea that you can't solve wide receiver until you solve Penei Sewell, right? Or somebody like that. I know Sewell's actually, there's rumors about him that are really, I think, kind of along the same lines as Justin Fields. So we're not going to repeat them. But like, when it comes to the Bengals, like, I can see why people want Sewell. They saw how Joe Burrow's season ended, but at the same time, like, their offensive line was a disaster last year, and Burrow actually played fairly well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that the markets are the way they are. That's why I said 5.5. Right? I'm hedging a little bit for the NFL's value of those positions. I think that the uproar about Penei Sewell versus taking a Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, if I were to play the PTI, what word describes this? I would say it's dated. It's old. It's tired. It's an easy argument to make. Okay. In the same way that setting up play action is an easy argument to make. And I would challenge people to think just a little more deeply about it. And this is not, you mentioned Robert Mays, who is like, we love Robert, and he is number one offensive lineman guy. If you look at like football media, he loves offensive line play, and it's incredibly important. But it's also, as you said, average gets it done. And if you look at Tom Brady, for example, last year, his average time to throw was like 2.3 seconds. And he still managed to have an average depth of target of just under 9.5 yards downfield. It's the second longest in the NFL. It had the most deep completions of any quarterback in the NFL that throws 20 plus yards downfield. And he did so because his wide receivers were incredible. In fact, just the year before, with another average offensive line, he looked not so great because his receivers sucked. And so I just think that it's too easy for people to make the claim that, well, yeah, if you're getting knocked down, how can you throw a pass downfield? And it's like, actually, an average offensive lineman isn't getting torched and knocked down to the point where Joe Burrow can't get the ball 5 yards downfield. I just think here's one of the litmus tests I have for whether an argument is crazy or not. If like the average NFL fan happens to think it's totally correct, then you're probably not thinking it deeply, thinking it through enough.
Yeah. And we've seen the one side because it's extremely apparent to us. We've seen it's sort of like the pass rush versus coverage thing where
hold on. So you said we've seen the one side. Don't you think this is literally like a reaction to the last game we saw?
Oh, I think so. And I'm like, obviously, think about this though. Why would you pass up on an opportunity to draft the best wide receiver in college football to keep to put yourself in a position so that you don't have, like, it doesn't even solve the problem the Chiefs had in the Super Bowl. The problem the Chiefs had in the Super Bowl was that 4 out of their 5 starting linemen were injured.
Yep. Like,
you're not acquiring Penei Sewell week 21 last year and having him in there. They drafted a guy in the 3rd round, and they had 2 potential starters in that game opt out in July, right? Lucas Niang, the 3rd round pick from TCU, and Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who's a doctor. Like, none of those things are solved, right? Like, the Chiefs actually had the exact example of what we're talking about, and maybe one of the reasons why you might opt for a Sewell, because I'll talk. I actually did tweet out that I don't hate the Bengals taking Sewell this specific situation, but the Chiefs drafted Eric Fisher with the first pick in the entire draft in 2013, and he has mostly, relative to that draft position, not panned out. But he's been an average tackle the whole time. And that offense has been the league's best. They made it to 2 Super Bowls with him at left tackle. In fact, they made it to a Super Bowl in 2019. Fisher missed 8 of those games. Cameron Irving, another 1st round draft pick, by the way, they don't always work, was one of the worst offensive linemen in football for 8 games. And yes, the Chiefs lost 3 of those games, I think, but their offense was still like functional even with him in there. So whereas if you look at their, like, to me, and people will laugh at this, but to me, the biggest difference between the Chiefs offense in 2019 playoffs and 2020 playoffs is the 3rd option for the Chiefs in 2019 played fantastic, football. And the 3rd option for the Chiefs played okay in the AFC title game. He did fumble a punt, but he made 2 big plays on offense. And in the Super Bowl, the 3rd receiving options for the Chiefs were nowhere to be found. And so the Buccaneers were in a really good spot where the Chiefs are weak up front. They could rush with 4 and play 7, and you could allocate 4 of those 7 to Kelsey and to Hill, and those other 3 leave you in a 3-on-3 situation. And if those secondary and tertiary guys don't work, then you get what the Chiefs got, where guys aren't open right away. So that to me, that's where people don't realize that. People don't understand the pressure is oftentimes the product of guys not getting open early in the pattern.
Yes. And that's a huge point, right? And we've studied this, that quarterbacks to a large extent own their pressure rate by how long they hold onto the ball. And that's why I brought up the Tom Brady example. Tom Brady gets rid of the ball quickly, and it doesn't mean that he's dinking and dunking it like Alex Smith. I had a few things I want to say here. The first thing is I'll just reference PFF WAR. Trent Williams, most valuable offensive lineman in football last year, about 0.4 of a win above replacement. He was amazing. Davante Adams, and there's a reason I'm glad it's Davante Adams. Davante Adams was the most valuable wide receiver, just under a full win above replacement at 0.9 of a win. So almost double what the most valuable offensive tackle was. And over the course of the last 3 years on average, that has basically held up. Now, the reason I bring that up is because David Bakhtiari is right behind Trent Williams and basically one of the most valuable offensive linemen over the past 3 years, and he was injured. Davante Adams was playing. Now, you might say, okay, with David Bakhtiari, they have a better chance of winning that game. And now I would say there were a lot of other issues for why they lost that game to the Bucs, but there's no way that they are making it that far without Davante Adams. And if you look at the other 4 teams in the Final 4, you have the Bills, who had a tremendous receiving core, and Stephon Diggs.
And average offensive line play, right?
Yes, like average offensive line play. You have the Bucs. Their offensive line was good, but they were not great. And Tom Brady made that offensive line look a lot better by how quickly he got rid of the ball. They had an elite wide receiving core and tight end core. And then you've got the Chiefs, of course, who, look, their offensive line became putrid by the time they got to the Super Bowl, but their wide receivers, by and large, were very, very good. And so you look at, these teams and you go, what's the constant? It's an elite passing game formed by a really great quarterback and a great receiving core. And I just think that is the way that the league is moving. And a lot of people are thinking about the league the way maybe it was a long time ago. And I'm agreeing with you. I don't have a huge issue with him taking an offensive tackle, but for me, it would not be a question. I would take Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. And I'll say this as well. The fact that there isn't consensus on Sewell versus Slater is interesting to me. And I wonder if that leads the Bengals to
there take. Is though, is like sorry for interrupting. I think there is, among the things that matter, like the markets, do you think that the non-consensus between Sewell and Slater is just making shit up right now in the
Maybe, but we've moved. What I was going to say is, like, Chase is definitively Like Chase and Pitts are in a league of their own, like Jamar Chase dominated. He was the best receiver in football. I think he was wins above average, the most valuable wide receiver as a 19-year-old with Joe Burrow and a not good offensive line. If you get a PFF subscription, go look at those grades back for that offensive line. They were not very good. Joe Burrow and that wide receiving core made them great.
Because I agree. Look, I think in the minds of, if you're watching NFL Network or you're on Twitter or whatever, like there was that report that came out from Albert Breer that said, all this kind of stuff I think is just nonsense in the sense that like Chase was like about minus 150 to be the first wide receiver taken. Now he's minus 400. Devontae Smith is plus 500. So is Jalen Waddle. If you look at O-line, this actually has gone down with all this silliness. The other thing was that he had short arms and all that stuff, but like Sewell was minus 1,000 to be the first offensive lineman taken. He's now minus 625, which still are higher implied odds than Chase. Slater is plus 350. I do think it's interesting in the sense that Slater is one rival there, and maybe that's confusing people. Whereas at wide receiver, I think people are putting Waddle and Smith sort of in the same category, and that's what the betting markets are doing. Whereas Chase is clearly above both of them. But look, I'll say this, and this might sound dumb. I mean, if this thing gets to like minus 400, let's say Sewell's number, I'm betting it. And I know you're laying a huge price, but like I have a hard time seeing Sewell not be the first lineman taken. But to your point about the Bengals, and I didn't even think, like, the Bengals signed Riley Reif to be a right tackle. Very good deal, by the way. And honestly, a team like the Niners, would you have rather the Niners sign Trent Williams for what he signed for, or Riley Reif for what he signed for?
Trent Williams.
Okay, so you think Trent's that much better? So okay,
I think here's the thing. I think Trent is better. And remember when they traded for Trent Williams, I said, well, they're going to go get a rookie quarterback.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and those pairs,
it's a 3-year deal, right? So yeah, I have no problem.
Well, and those pairs is what our friend Jason Fitzgerald over the cap has talked about a lot, where, it was Bosa, rookie deal guy, along with Jimmy G, veteran quarterback. In Cleveland, it was Myles Garrett, big deal, with rookie quarterback Mayfield. So now you go get Trent Williams is a big deal. You're going to get a rookie quarterback for this 1 year. They're going to be paying up if they still have Jimmy G. Okay, here's one. I'll ask. Would you rather have would you rather have Orlando Brown? Because this is the other name that's coming up. Would you rather have Orlando Brown and what it's probably going to cost for him in a trade plus the salary, or would you rather have Riley Reif?
And probably Riley Reif. I just want average offensive lineman. I don't want to, go crazy, And
Riley Reif had a really good year last year. Like he gave up like 1 sack, relatively few pressures. Like he actually had a good year. But like that's the thing, and people have been, and this kind of makes the Orlando Brown thing interesting too. Not to bring this up out of the blue, but like he's going to want at least Garrett Bowles money. So that's $17 million a year. He wants that to play left tackle for a team. You're also probably going to have to trade the equivalent of a second or first round pick for him. Like, to me, the team that the Ravens get to do that is really dumb because like, wouldn't you rather, because Orlando Brown has like 10 games of left tackle experience, and you're paying up all of that for like fake certainty. Whereas you have like, you can pick up one of what the market says 7 offensive linemen in the first round.
Let's do a quick check-in on the number 3 overall pick at DraftKings Sportsbook. Justin Fields plus 125, Mac Jones plus 150, Trey Lance plus 200. So very close, very, very, very close. I am a little surprised that Mac Jones is still ahead of Trey Lance, to be perfectly honest with you.
That changed, by the way. Because I bet Fields at plus 150 early last week. And at the time he was plus 150 with Lance. And then Mac Jones is plus 200. This was right after, I believe, either the press conference or the pro day where everybody kind of faded Jones for a little bit. So that's changed a little bit. In the market implied mock, I do have Jones going after Lance. I still believe that is the case. I think Jones is specific to San Francisco.
Yep.
The hype around Jones is specific to San Francisco. I think if you just said random team, like I think like Carolina would probably prefer Lance to Jones. I think Denver would probably prefer Lance to Jones. I could be wrong.
It's why the Jones San Francisco thing is just so freaking stupid.
The idea that Shanahan would be that off market and wrong is really silly to me. I think
he'll fit that offense. Why? Because the offense is so good. Even Mac Jones would look great. Congrats.
Right. Why would you? That's like saying that's like a Porsche and like you're like Toyota Camry sitting next to each other, and you pick the Toyota Camry because the seat feels nice, but they're both the same price.
Don't try and step in my lane, okay? I'm the one that disparages department stores and cars, beloved brands, and the Toyota Camry is a beloved car, okay? So don't you dare. I
think my tweet that I've gotten a decent number of likes on was the one that talked about we are going to lose another sponsor because of your. What was the other one
I said that trading 3 first-round picks to draft Mac Jones would be like spending $150,000 to buy a Honda Accord. And people were mad at me. They thought I was disparaging the Honda Accord. In fairness, I love the Honda Accord. The Honda Accord was the last car that I drove. I leased one for 2 years. Fantastic car. But I'm not paying $150,000 for it. That's the point. Mac Jones is a fine quarterback if you get him for 30 G's at pick 15. But if you're picking at number 3, you have to take a guy who could potentially be a top 5 quarterback. That is Justin Fields. We've belabored that point. Are you ready for win totals?
I'm ready right now. I got my simulation in front of me. I'm good.
We're about to talk about win totals. And if you're looking for a place where you can bet on said win totals, you'll want to go to DraftKings and the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It is America's top-rated sportsbook app, and it is so for a reason. You will get a ton of awesome opportunities to bet, including this week where the Masters is beginning. So use promo code PFF when you sign up, and here's what they will do for you. All you have to do is bet on any golfer to finish in the top 10, and you will get 100-1 odds on that player. Any of them. You can pick the favorite, okay? And you'll get 100-1 odds. I have some Masters picks. I'm saving them for Wednesday for that show. I will talk to you about them. I think Brooks Koepka is like 12-1. I always bet a couple of long shots. I'm generally I'm gonna tout myself. I don't like to do this. I'm gonna tout myself a little bit. The Masters is a place where I generally do well from betting perspective. So now that I've said that, you can fade everything I say on Wednesday and then go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code PFF and get those 100-1 odds on any golfer to finish in the top 10. You can look at their historical stats that might give you some insight. Remember, you must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers are the only ones eligible. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Also, if you are looking to invest in sports, a cool place to do that is Simbull, SIMBULL. You can go to it at simbull.app/PFF. Use promo code PFF when you deposit $10. You get a free year of PFF Edge subscription. So that's a fantastic value. And here's the cool thing. At Simbull, you can buy stock in teams just like you would stock in companies in the stock market. And then if that team wins, you get paid a dividend. And if those shares go up because other people want to buy into them, you can sell your shares for more money. It's a lot of fun. With free agency and the draft, there'll be some movement here. We've talked about a bunch. We just talked about some win totals. I'll bet you can use those to go buy some stock in some teams that are undervalued at the moment. Eric, anything that you've purchased recently on Simbull?
2 shares of the Falcons.
Man after my own heart. What an Easter miracle. So go to Simbull, SIMBULL.app/PFF. Use promo code PFF. Get a free PFF Edge annual subscription for a whole year. Go do it. And now, win totals. We're going to go AFC. We're going to start AFC East. So these are all via DraftKings Sportsbook. The Buffalo Bills are 10.5, -110 both sides. The Miami Dolphins are 9, -121 to the over, +100 to the under. The New England Patriots also at 9, -143 to the over and 118, +118 to the under. And the New York Jets are at 7, +123 to the over, -150 to the under. Where would you like to start?
Well, first off, I think the Bills number is dead on. And honestly, they we did the simulation 10,000 times. It's about 50-50, right around 10.5. So that one seems fair to me. Let's start with the Jets then to actually look at trying to handicap this. What do you think of the Jets total?
So I went back to what we had we thought originally, and I said I thought 5.5, add another half for the 6 for the extra game, and you get 6. So I agree with the juice here. I think it's a little rich. I would like to bet the under. I honestly would.
Okay.
If I had to go one side of things.
I actually like over here at plus 123, and I'll give you a few. I'll give you a few reasons why. The first reason, this is going to get roundabout way to New England and Miami anyway. In Miami, you're still like in all these situations, you're making essentially a bet on a quarterback that maybe doesn't deserve it. So for Miami, 9 over being 121, you're basically making a bet on Tua, right? Would you say, and I, we said the Dolphins might be 9, so this is less than what we thought, right? When we talked about these earlier this offseason, but like if Tua doesn't work out, this is more like an 8, right? And the same thing's true about New England, right? New England, when you look at that, like over 9 for New England is more expensive than over 9 is for the Miami Dolphins. And I just like when I look at the Patriots, like, yeah, they got better, but did they get better enough for this to make for 9 to be their win total?
No. So in fairness, I would not bet the Jets either side. And the reason I would not bet the Jets either side is because I'm not paying minus 150 to take the under on Zach Wilson. And 7 is a lot of games for the New York Jets to win. The one that I think is most exciting to me is the Patriots at 9 and betting the under plus 118, because this to me is an overreaction to the fact that they signed 2 tight ends, a couple of shitty wide receivers, overpaid for an edge rusher, and brought Cam back for $5 million. Like, I do think there are, obviously you can see the path to them getting over 9 wins. And I get that there's now 17 games. I understand that. But that's my favorite of all of these is the Patriots under 9 at plus 118.
Yeah, the other thing to think about for the Jets, their 17th game is home against the Eagles, which I think are a bottom 3 team in the NFL. So they also get the Bengals. They also get the NFC South, which is weaker than it will be, has been in a while. Our Falcons notwithstanding. So that's okay. So you like under there. I think we both agree that under 9 plus 118 is a good bet. That one will go with our Falcons bet. I think that's the one we can agree upon. We are different on the Jets. I think over at plus.
Yeah, I mean, you'd actually bet that though. I just wouldn't bet the Jets. Yeah. I'm just saying I wouldn't bet the Jets.
Yeah, so I don't like Miami, but I think that I don't want to bet against Flores. Our number for them is 8.3. So, it's and our number for New England's 8.5. You're getting a better price to bet under on New England. So I would still go ahead and go with that even. And then our number for the Jets is 7.3, which is quite a bit higher than 6.5. And I think a lot of that is just schedule related. Over a bunch of simulations, Miami and New England aren't going to be all that good. And you could also look to the Buffalo Bills, who I think are going to be a great team. But if they only win their implied total, one of those extra losses, since they were a 13-win team last year, could be to the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I also meant to mention this at the top when we did this, but I thought this was interesting, and I wanted your take on it. So last year, the 2020 win totals added up to 262.5 wins, which was 6.5 more than the possible number of wins. Now, with the 17th game, there's obviously more wins available. But the sum of the win totals adds to 273, just one more than the total number of possible wins. So it's interesting because there isn't as much of a bias, at least at the start, to the overs in the market. And I'm not totally surprised. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And was this before or after you did the adjustment?
No, this is just the raw numbers.
Okay. Okay. Cause I think that's a good point. If you adjust them, let me look here. It's 272.9. So you're absolutely, yeah. So like most people will say there's there's more juice to the over, but actually in this case, the answer it's not actually true. In fact, there's a small amount more juice to the under, at least when they open.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting because it was getting back to, normally people see the numbers and they're like, well, my team is obviously going to win more games than that. And I think they've had to bump the numbers up a little bit, but people are so used to the numbers that they see that it might not be, it's hard for them to compartmentalize the fact that there is a whole nother game and what that means to the schedule. So, it would normally, I think we'd be more on unders, in general, because there's more value there based on where the market lies. And here that might not be the case. Yep. Let's move to the AFC North. The favorites in this division that I think is maybe should not be the case. The Baltimore Ravens win total is 11. Over is -125. Under is +103. The Cincinnati Bengals 6.5, -110 to both sides. The Cleveland Browns 9.5. Over -150. Under +123. And the Pittsburgh Steelers 8.5. Over is -125 and under is +103. Where would you like to start?
Let's start with Pittsburgh because I know both of us, I hung Pittsburgh's number when we guessed
7.5
at 7.5,
adjusted to 8. And I said 8 and you adjust that to like 8.5. So both of us would have been on the under here.
Yeah. But you look at, so one of the things here, so we actually numerically have Pittsburgh at 8.8 in the simulation. So my intuition at least is a little bit different than the numbers. I can't see myself betting over on Pittsburgh, though. I think there's too many things that can go wrong with that team.
Yeah, if I had to bet one side, I'd bet the under, and I'd bet, like things kind of just falling out of the bottom there in Pittsburgh. I don't 8.5 though, with the extra game. I know they're going to, here's the interesting thing, playing a first place schedule and not being the best team in that division, not even the second best team in that division. If I had to choose one side, I would take the under at +103, but I don't think that this is a bet I exactly want to make.
By the way, the schedule thing is interesting, right? Because every single AFC team's extra game is a home game, as we talked about before. So that might mean a little bit more than we thought. The other thing that's interesting, Tennessee is a first place team and Pittsburgh is a first place team. Neither one of those teams is lined to be the favorite in their division next year. That just makes Kansas City richer, doesn't it? Because those are their off, their finished games, right? And it's just kind of like a crazy thing. I feel like.
All right, there are two that I like here. Let me start with the team that we've already talked about, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I want your take here because I think you might help me decide which side, where to put my brain, because I'm split. 6.5 is too low for how good Joe Burrow played in a limited amount of time, how good that receiving core could be with the right added options, how much that offensive line can improve with some average play. It's just too low. And the other side of me goes, yeah, but do we know that this coaching staff can actually get it together? That is my hesitation there.
And that was the real big thing. I mean, we had one pretty big swing and a miss last year in the preseason markets, and that was Detroit. And the big thing with Detroit was we had 2 years of seeing Matt Patricia not be able to coach his way out of a paper
Don't compare Zach Taylor to Matt Patricia.
And I'm not trying to, but do we have evidence that Zach Taylor is a bet on coach?
No. And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And I suspended disbelief on Patricia Like, I just don't know if I can. Now, there's a lot of good there. And I do like, for example, like William Jackson, they let him go and replaced him with two other corners that I thought that was a better move, right? Like Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton together made about as much as William Jackson did in Washington. I thought that was a decent move for them. Jesse Bates is a terrific football player. I don't like them losing Carl Lawson and replacing him with Trey Hendrickson. But you look at the offensive side of the ball, think about this, like what has really, Cincinnati has looked outclassed every time they've played Pittsburgh and Baltimore, with the exception of that Monday night game, for the better part of the last 5 years, right? Baltimore has spent 70% of their cap dollars on defense. That is no longer going to be the case eventually, because they have to pay Lamar. They might have to pay Orlando Brown. We just talked about so on and so forth. They got to find a wide receiver, et cetera. Pittsburgh, as we talked about, the bottom might fall out of that team. If the Bengals can split those games or win one of four, and Cleveland doesn't do what we think they'll do, and I think Cleveland's going to be great this year, but then I think it's a different calculus. But I have to bag off. I can't do it.
You're gonna back off.
I think that's the lesson I learned from last year.
Okay. I still like Joe Burrow a little bit. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait to see who they draft. I believe that Jamar Chase and or Kyle Pitts are good enough to immediately make an impact on that team. I don't think there are a whole lot of players in this draft that are good enough to actually do that. And
if they traded down and got Jalen Waddle, I would have the same response.
And picked up another. Correct. Yeah, I agree. Okay. The Baltimore Ravens at 11. So when we guessed the win totals on the Ravens, I believe I said 10, you said 10.5. It is 11. It was 11.5 in 2020.
We were both on under, even though we like them.
Yes. I am still on the under, and I still like them. I do. But I just think there are some major questions for this team. And I don't know that I don't have faith that their offense is just, they had an off year last year. Okay. They got it together in the second half of the season. They didn't play a ton of great teams, but I don't know if their offense takes another step forward this year, because we've seen teams adjust, and I don't know that they've put together the pieces unless Lamar Jackson just goes like banana land on improvement over the offseason to take the next step. Where are you at with them?
Ravens extra game is a home game against the Rams, which might end up being tough, right? Like that's a bad draw. 11 is a large win total. I think reserved. Let's go through like their schedule. Like let's if you look at their schedule, there's a lot of games where the quarterback they face is in the same cluster or better than Lamar is. So they face the Bengals. Burrow's not better than Lamar, but I'm ready to sort of put them in a similar conversation. Cleveland, right? Twice. Baker Mayfield is in the same conversation as Lamar. That's not true about the Steelers. I think the Steelers are the weakest quarterback in the division. They play Kansas City. I like Mahomes. They face the Chargers. Again, Herbert could go either way, but it's looking good right now. Packers, Vikings, both good quarterbacks. Indianapolis, that's a team that's similarly sharp as the Ravens.
Yes, but don't you dare put Carson Wentz in the same fucking universe as Lamar Jackson.
Raiders have Derek Carr. Rams have Stafford. Like, they don't have an easy schedule. And so for me,
and they had an incredibly easy schedule
down the stretch last year, right? That was what Kornacki was saying. Like, look, like the Ravens look awful, but like you look at their next 5 games, like down the stretch, like they just have a bunch of gimmies. Like, this isn't going to be a bunch of gimmies. They also go to Miami as well. So I'm with you. Especially if I can get plus 103, like I'm going to do it. So that's one that I agree with you with 100%.
And this is not 11 is a big number. You can bet the under and still like the team. This is not like hating the Ravens fans are very passionate. I appreciate the Ravens fans, and we like a lot of the people at the Ravens. So I want to make that super clear. But there are question marks there. There simply are. And a lot of teams have question marks, including a lot of the teams in the next division we're going to talk about, the AFC.
So do we want to talk about Cleveland at all? I think the number for Cleveland, I think, is kind of dead ass on, right?
Yeah, I completely forgot, in large part because I'm not betting over 9.5 at -150, and I'm not betting under on Kevin Stefanski.
The 9.5 does appear to be the right. I mean, think about how absurd this was. I believe their number was 9.5 going into 2018 with Freddie Kitchens.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, this is like 2018, except everything has changed.
Everything's real, right? It's like,
I will say this: the way I'm betting Cleveland is the same way I bet them a couple of times so far this offseason, which is to bet them to win the division. So I would bet the Ravens under, or you could, if you don't want to bet the Ravens under, you feel like both these teams are going to be dynamite, then bet the Browns to win the division. I think
Cleveland plus 175, I believe, which is in my opinion, a pretty good bet.
Okay, AFC South. The Indianapolis Colts are 10 plus 110 to the over, -134 to the under. The Jacksonville Jaguars 6.5 -110 both sides. The Tennessee Titans 9.5 plus 123 over, -150 under. Denver, and that's it. I wanted to give them an extra team. Let's start.
Denver has played like an AFC South team for the better part of 5 years. So
let's start with the Titans, because 9.5. That's what they were 8.5 last year. Okay, they were 8.5 last year. You get an extra game. Let's say they were the same team. You add a half, get to 9. Now it's 9.5. And in fairness, this was right around where we had them when we guessed. But man, I am feeling regression coming for the Titans. What is your thought?
Yeah, the AFC South plays the NFC West, which is the travel, obviously. Now, when they play the AFC West at home, it'll be a 2-hour difference there in the Central Time Zone. So it'll if those games are at 1 noon Central, it'll be bad for the NFC West, but those are a bunch of good teams, right? Like you have to face the Rams in Los Angeles. You have to face the 49ers at home. You also get the Chiefs at home. And, by virtue of being a first place team, you also get Pittsburgh, which again, like, I don't like Pittsburgh, but I do think Pittsburgh could have a game where they sack Tannehill 10 times, right? You lose Arthur Smith, you lose Corey Davis, you lose the starting right tackle Dennis Kelly, and then you on defense cut your starting 3 corners are not going to return next year. In addition to acquiring what I would consider to be the most overvalued pass rusher in the entire free agent pool in Bud Dupree. I'm a complete sell on.
Would you sell at? Here's where I'm struggling, because I want to sell, but -150 is a very steep price.
Yeah, so for me, it's more of the no on the playoff market.
Okay. Than
it is a win total thing. You get plus price on the no on the playoff market. I'm not betting them to win the division. I would actually, I put some shekels on Jacksonville to win the division, because it's it's gone down.
Let's talk about Jacksonville.
It was 12-1. Now it's 8-1. I think Jacksonville has a chance to be decent, man.
6.5.
And our number for them is 7. So that's one where,
so this is interesting. I was talking to Mike Renner about Urban Meyer. And I was like, you really think Urban Meyer is going to work? He's going to come in there. He's been sitting in a booth for the past 3 years. He can't know what's going on. And he made a good point, which is that Urban Meyer's strength is that he doesn't have some archaic offensive system that he's tied to. He's very much about running whatever works. So I don't think we'll see those kind of issues. And if that's the case, then 6.5 wins is not a tall, hurdle. And I don't think that we have to worry too much. For Lawrence, I don't know that he'll be great right away, but I'm not worried about him being terrible, you know?
Yeah. And so here's another thing. Does Urban Meyer matter that much? Because when I look at this team, Charlie Strong, assistant head coach, inside linebacker, has a lot of experience in the NFL. probably will do a decent amount of heavy lifting. Do you know who Russell Wilson's offensive coordinator was during his time in Seattle early on? It's Darrell Bevell, and Darrell Bevell's the offensive coordinator for the Jaguars. Brian Schottenheimer is the passing game coordinator. Like, Shoddy got a lot of crap, but it's starting to come out that it might be one of those situations. It might be like a Stefanski versus Zimmer thing where the offensive coordinator wants to do certain things, but the head coach is setting a tenor that isn't going to allow him to.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with Darrell Bevell. For some reason, I was thinking there was a guy before Darrell Bevell, and I was like trying to harken back to pre-Bevell years, but I don't.
Bevell's architected decent offenses before Minnesota and then Seattle, and then Detroit was having a decent time. I'm not a huge fan, but the other thing is college coaches have not done that badly. Like in Pete Carroll's first year with Seattle, he took them to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. Nick Saban's first year in Miami, they won 9 games with Gus Frerotte and our guy Sage Rosenfels at quarterback. Like we hear about like the Dennis Erickson thing, and that didn't work. But Jimmy Johnson went straight from the University of Miami, took the Cowboys to the Super Bowl in 4 years. Like there are examples of college coaches coming to the NFL and doing a good job. And to your point and to Mike's point, if he lets his coaches coach and he just is a CEO guy, I think they'll be okay. You look at the draft they had last year, where they went with Laviska Shenault, they went with CJ Henderson and a lot of high upside guys at valuable positions. And then you look back and see like their offensive line has gotten a little bit better. Their receivers are still strong with Chark. They're on defense, like they're going to get Josh Allen back, who's hurt, I think, a little bit last year. And this division stinks, man. Like this is terrible. I'm
betting Jacksonville over. Jacksonville over. I thought Indy under was going to be my favorite bet. I'm not touching Houston with a 29.5-foot pole. To quote,
we actually had to make a new thing in the PFF ELO rating system to account for tanking teams, and I do think that's one thing that I'm not saying that Houston is tanking on purpose, by the way. I'm using tank as sort of a more all-encompassing
really
term.
Bad.
But I'm saying like a team, because right now, like all these simulations are going to have all the bad teams 6 wins or better, and all the good teams at 11.5 wins or less. Like that's just how these things work. But I think that place this tag on like 6 or 7 teams in the PFF era, and it's made the predictions better. Like I went back testing, and like it makes the predictions better to like say, look, 2017 Cleveland's not trying to win, folks. Yep. Like 2016 Cleveland's not trying to win, and I put the tag on the Jets last year, and not because I thought that they were actually tanking, but because they were just so incapable of winning games that it was just. So if you place that on Houston, then our implied win total for them is 5.3, and that makes the over for them a non-bet for me.
Yeah, I'm not betting the over. Now, so what would you do with Indy? 10 is the win total, but it's minus 134 to the under.
So you said 10?
Yeah, it's 10 is the number, and it's minus 134 to bet the under, plus 110 to bet the over.
Yeah, I mean, our number for them is 9.4, so we have it going under 51% of the time, push 19% of the time, and then over 30% of the time. So it would probably be playable at that. I'd have to do the math in my head, but the problem is it's really hard to bet against Frank Reich, and this is not an 11 like the Ravens. That's like, I think, one of the issues as well. I kind of put the Colts and the Ravens in sort of similar ilk. Yeah. In that, like, if you gave me 10 for Baltimore, I wouldn't bat an eyelash at all. It's the 11 that I think is just a little bit too much for me. If you gave me a 10.5, I'd probably bet under on Indy. At 10, I'm just gonna move, a little bit. And the sort of rule of thumb is about 50 cents per win. So like if it does get, minus 134, To me, that's just a little bit too expensive. But if you gave me 11 for them, I'd absolutely bet under. If you gave me 9 for them, I'd absolutely bet over. Like it's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah. And I just think that this division is bad. So I think Frank Reich can do a lot of things that will really help his team win some games that maybe this composition of players actually shouldn't win. And that's why I'm not betting under at -134. Okay, let's finish it out with the AFC West. Your Kansas City Chiefs, highest win total in the NFL, 12, -110 to both sides. The Los Angeles Chargers of Anaheim, 9. Over is +103, under -125. The Las Vegas Raiders are 7.5, -110 to both sides. And the Denver Broncos are also 7.5, -110 to both sides. Let's just start with your Chiefs really quickly. 12 is a high number. Are you do you have a take on 12 at -110 both sides?
No, our number's 12.2. I don't think I've ever bet a Chiefs over win total. Maybe I did a little at 10.5 in 2019, maybe. But Andy Reid has been the Chiefs coach, I believe now for 8 years, and he's 8-0 to the over. So like, I'm not betting the under there. But also just our numbers, dead on there. They're a very good team. And to the point I talked about, they're playing a first place schedule, but Tennessee and Pittsburgh are not first place teams in the eyes of the market. So they even get lucky there.
Yeah. Okay. So there are two that I like, and I'll let you choose which one we discuss. I like the Denver Broncos over 7.5, -110. And I like the Los Angeles Chargers under 9, -125.
Yeah, I think the Chargers one is the better one, but I think they're both plus EV for sure.
I'm struggling. The Chargers one is tough for me. I love Brandon Staley. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I guess the tough part for me is expecting Herbert to be that good on these unstable situations. And, like he was just so good under pressure. Remember his pass rating under pressure better than his pass rating from a clean pocket. Absolutely insane. Yards per attempt, likewise. And you just don't expect that to be the case. Even if he continues to play well, like I legitimately think he could play better from a clean pocket. And overall, people think he has a worse year. 9 is a big number, even at -125.
I mean, you need them to go to 10-7 or better. And the Chargers simply have not won at that clip other than 2018 forever. I mean, but don't you think like the difference between Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn is massive? I mean, do we really know this? Brandon Staley has been a coach Brandon Staley was a coordinator for 1 year.
Yeah, but all you have to do is spend 5 minutes listening to Brandon Staley and go, oh, this guy gets it. Like you listen to coaches talk, and you go, can I bet against this guy? Like how many coaches do you listen to where you go, this guy actually knows knows anything? And Brandon Staley, like he gets it, man. The only reason that I struggle to immediately buy in to how much he can change right off the bat is that he is a defensive guy. So I think their defense, the defense is just so fragile that even if he comes in and brings the defensive guru-ness, there are perturbations that can occur. Whereas if you were an offensive guy, I feel really good about what he could do for the offense.
Yeah, they get Derwin James back, which is really helpful. They lose Casey Hayward, which is not. Joey Bosa, is perpetually injured, as is Derwin James. So that defense, like I just don't know if I can buy into that. And then offensively, like Herbert's going to be on his second coordinator in 2 years already, and they lost Hunter Henry. I know they got Jared Cook, but we always goof around about Jared Cook. This is finally going to be the year he's good or elite, I guess. They bought into a running back in Eckler, who I think is a good football player, but like I'm skeptical. Like I thought Shane Steichen actually did a really good job last year, and they did patch up the offensive line a little bit. They probably, they're in the market implied mock. I have them getting Jalen Waddle at 13. So if they could get that, or Darashar, or even Slater, if he falls that far, like they could significantly improve this thing. But 9's a lot for a team that has not shown, much in the way of being able to go, be a 500 or better team. So I like that one. I do like the Denver over. I think Vic Fangio is a better coach than people give him credit for. I think Pat Shurmur is a better coach than people give him credit for. The Raiders, in the eyes of the marketplace, are going down. Their win total is about this is the exact same as last year, despite the extra game being a home game. Which I don't necessarily get. I kind of would like Vegas too. But if I had to pick, I think Denver over is the one that I want to buy into a little bit more, just because they might get improvement from Drew Lock. And if they don't, like, they're going to have a different quarterback at the end of April anyway. Whether that be like Sam Darnold or Jimmy G, or somebody who they draft like Trey Lance or Mac Jones.
I don't mind the Raiders either. My issue with the Raiders is that I just don't think they have a ton of talent on that team. Like, I look at that team and I'm legitimately like concerned. Whereas the Denver Broncos have talent everywhere. I mean, there's one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, and their issue is quarterback. So if you put Gardner Minshew on the Broncos, I'm buying this win total all day long. You put Sam Darnold on the Broncos, I'm buying this win total all day long. You put Jimmy G on the Broncos, I'm buying it all day long. You put anyone other than like the 33rd best quarterback in the NFL, and I'm buying it all day long. I believe that's what his PFF grade was last year, Drew Lock. Whereas with the Raiders, like, you feel good about Derek Carr, but he's not a guy that's going to lift everyone up. And I just worry so many of the shots they've taken have missed. I don't know where, you're hoping for a lot of improvement from Henry Ruggs after year one.
Well, yeah. And I've been watching some football in the background here all week as usual. And I got the algorithm took me to the 2011 Niners, actually. And I was looking at that team and I was thinking to myself, this team got good really freaking fast, right? And you look at their defenses, like, Justin Smith, Ray McDonald, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, and they get Carlos Rogers from the Washington football team, and they get Deshaun Golston, and then they literally went from the worst coach in football, right, to one of the best in Jim Harbaugh at the time. And that to me is like the ideal thing for the Vegas Raiders, is like they've drafted a ton of young players over the past like 4 years, right? And none of them have played well. Literally nothing has worked out for that. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been fine, but that doesn't really matter, right? And I just think that Gruden is like just stepping on his dick the whole time. Like, if they went in there and got a coach that, like, I think sort of you could see a 49ers thing, right? That's exactly what happened to the Niners in the 2011. It's like they've been,
but their offense isn't bad.
But the Raiders, yeah. But like, imagine how good that team would be offensively if they, like if Ruggs emerged, right? If Brian Edwards emerged, and like Darren Waller's already a great player, and Derek Carr's a fine quarterback. I mean, I think it was Gruden's fault to have Gunther as a defensive coordinator last year. Like, just the same way that I think it's Mike McCarthy's fault to have, Nolan, a guy who drafted a lot of those Niners.
Yeah, but isn't the bigger issue that they have just failed to accumulate talent? But I guess you could say that is kind of Gruden's fault, because he's theoretically the all-powerful being there in the building. But I mean, yeah,
they are somewhat picking the wrong players, but they have, in theory, like the draft capital they have accumulated and then applied over the past 3-4 years, like, should result in something. It would, to me, I find it very hard that they could flip that many coins and for them all to land tails, if not for a little bit of a nudge from a coaching staff that I don't necessarily know if they have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, but so here's one of the interesting things. You mentioned flipping coins in the draft. Flipping coins in the draft still assumes that you have knowledge of the market.
Yeah, so, well, the Cleveland Farrell thing was
right. So if I'm flipping a coin between, if it's like, hey, pick between these 5 options, and all 5 of them, have the same, potential to be good or bad as determined by the, 500 people that have looked at them. But instead I flip a coin between 2 random things that I don't know anything about. Like, it's not a coin flip. I'm being an idiot. So, I do think there's a little bit of that. it's tough because their offense has been good, and efficient, and maybe more so than it should be, given they don't have a ton of talent there. But 7.5. If I had to bet one side, I would actually go over 7.5. It's just not one where I'm as excited. I think Denver. Look, if Denver gets Mac Jones, I'm excited about the over. If they get Trey Lance, I'm excited about the over. They get, as I said, Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, and I think that the thing for me was when I was trying to reason this out with respect to the Raiders, I actually came to Denver because the thing that really turned the Niners over back then was Alex Smith becoming a competent quarterback.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you look at Denver, they've acquired great players in the secondary. They've acquired, they have Von Miller already, which I would consider to be a similar, and the Niners drafted Aldon Smith, which was another but really, if the Broncos got Alex Smith level competence out of Drew Lock, they'd be a playoff team. So to me, that's why I love over here at plus 100. I like the Chargers under 9 minus 118. Every once in a while they'll get you, but betting Chargers under is just what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like last year there were 7.5, and now, it basically imply this is about 8 relative to last year's totals. This would be about 8.5. Did they get a full win better fundamentally? Kind of with Herbert, but I think the market is expecting Herbert to be the guy he was last year, which wasn't even that good in the sense that he was like a 15th rated passer in football, and B was not all that sustainable. So I'm going under on the Chargers as well as Denver on the over.
I'm there with you.
So we recap this: New England, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Denver, LAC.
Yeah, I think so. And we will have on PFF.com a win totals tracker with all the write-ups. So you can go check that out. It should be up this week. We'll, of course, have our first couple of write-ups on there. And on Wednesday, we will talk about the NFC side of things. Happy Easter, buddy. I hope you don't sleep in the pink. Maybe I'd mix it up a little bit, get some more manly colors.
That's for Austin, by the way.
Thank you guys for hanging out. We will see y'all on Wednesday. Peace.